There is no point in starting your own business unless you do it out of a sense of frustration. Richard Branson. Talking about frustration. On today's episode, I'm chatting with a young lady who had no choice but to start her own business. You have to hear why. You have the power to be the boss of your own life. I'm your host, Monica Allen. I'm a wife, mom, entrepreneur, best-selling author, lifelong learner, and your biz bestie. I have a love and passion for all things small business. Growing my own company from $700 to over 7 figures annually, my goal is to bring you inspiration, business-focused topics and tips, encouragement, and a community that helps you launch, grow, and scale your business, whether you are a dreamer, a side hustler, or a seasoned entrepreneur. You are listening to the Become Your Own Boss podcast. Raised by her Cape Verdean immigrant parents with a strong work ethic and overwhelming persistence, my guest today found herself a single mom of 3 and in quite a tough situation, leading her in 2016 to establish International Supply Partners, a medical, janitorial, office, and industrial supply company. Jennifer Barbosa leverages her company's relationship with leading manufacturers globally to assist companies in getting the supplies they need to run efficiently and effectively. Leverage that became quite crucial in the throes of the pandemic. Take a listen to my conversation with Jennifer. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, Monica. I really appreciate it. I'm equally as excited.
Yes. Tell me a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. I know you're a serial entrepreneur. I've read the bio, but tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
I do come from a line of entrepreneurs. My grandfather was an entrepreneur from the Cape Verde Islands. He was a businessman, and he actually sponsored, I don't know, maybe easily into the hundreds of people to get their visas to come to the U.S. from the Cape Verde Islands. He did a lot of import-export as well. My dad, I grew up with him owning, in which he still works in the business, a janitorial cleaning service. I grew up with cleaning offices and restaurants with the rest of the family. My mom always had some sort of side gig, whether it was Avon, Popular Club, and I had it in me. But what really, really drove my entrepreneurial spirit was my children. I had an experience when I was a young single mom, and I had come out of a relationship that wasn't the best situation. And my son had very bad asthma. And it would be triggered through the change of the seasons, if it was too hot, too cold. And I constantly had to leave work and take him to the emergency room or care for him. And my boss at the time, I worked for a nonprofit organization. I managed about almost 200 units, properties for low-income families, Section 8. I was really good at what I did, but I had to leave one afternoon a little bit early, and I told the director/owner that my son, the daycare called, it was an emergency, I needed to leave. And she told me, and I would never forget this moment, she said, that's why you go to college, get your degree, get married, buy a house, and then have kids.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, well, I graduated at the top of my class, went to one of the top college institutions in the country. Things didn't go according to plan, but you're not going to dictate how I'm supposed to live. And I do my job well. At that moment, I decided that I will never put myself in a position where I had to ask for permission or made to feel guilty for caring and being available for my kids.
Yeah.
And that's the driving force for me.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I actually thought about that as I worked in corporate, and I did see some of the struggles that females had in working and having to take time off. And I thought to myself at that moment, I've got to somehow have my own thing so I don't have to ask for permission. And I knew I needed to somehow figure that out. And at the time I had no idea, but I knew I had to figure that out because I saw my mom struggle when I
Yeah.
needed to do something and she had to ask, can I go do this? Or I need to run and go do that. And, you know, if you were late coming back from lunch or a variety of things, that was not looked at fondly. I totally get it. And I can relate to you so well because my children are my why. They're the reason that I push so hard to do what I do. So I get it.
Oh, absolutely. And my kids, they have gone to work with me. They see every aspect of what it is to run a business, the good and the bad, the wins and the struggles, the falls, the ups and downs, and they ride the wave with you. And that's motivation that you get because kids are resilient.
They really are.
And they'll go through it with you, not totally understanding what it is that you're going through, but just knowing, well, at least mom's here or mom shows up. And that's the reason.
Very true. Tell me this, what problem were you trying to solve with your recent company that you started, ISP LLC?
My business really started to take off. I had started it in 2016, and the goal was to do business with the government, to sell to the government. And originally I started just offering office supplies and janitorial cleaning supplies. During the pandemic, there became a need, and I learned, well, I had started to get communication from my manufacturers and a handful of people who knew I had the supply company asking me if I knew or had access to PPE. I was thrusted into this whole PPE process and selling and sourcing. And while it seemed like the rest of the world was bored out of their mind trying to figure out what to do with all this time, I think I averaged about 3 to 4 hours of sleep a day.
Oh, wow.
Because I was communicating with Asia during the night because it was day for them over there, and here in the US during the day. And my network expanded exponentially. And what I saw as the urgency and the problem that I seek to solve was accessibility. There were hospitals and governments who were desperately looking for the needed PPE and supplies, and not just PPE, but medical supplies, essential products that they needed to operate to do what they needed to do to take care of their clients, and not being able to do so because there was such a lot of congestion in supply chains. There was a lot of bad actors that were getting in, claiming to be able to do something and not following through. There were just a lot of tape in changes in the processes that occurred. So supplying my hospitals, I was able to supply essential products and items that the large distributors were not able to do so because a lot of things were in back order, production was pushed back. They only pull in products or import in large volumes, so multiple containers at a time. Okay. So a hospital that only needs a few cases of a product, they're made to wait, and they have to wait in queue. Their allocations expired, a variety of different things. And so I was able to leverage my relationships with the manufacturers, with importers and distributors to get the essential items that they needed, even if there was pulling it from multiple resources to get all of those products to them when the big guys really could not.
Wow. So what would you say was your advantage over them?
Being small and nimble.
Okay.
Literally. And I took it to heart and positioned myself in my client's place. And even further than that, the clients that they served. For example, my children's hospital, they serve children. They, preemies, children with cancer. When they say they need something, to me, I felt like one of the parents, and I so happened to be that the hospital that is my client, they were also the hospital that cared for my daughter when she was diagnosed with diabetes. That gave me an even more personal incentive in making sure that they had the essential items because they took care of my daughter in a very critical point in our lives. And
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make sure that those parents whose children were being cared for there, that they knew that the essential items that were needed for their babies was accessible to the hospital.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I'm so glad you were there for those hospitals because I know for even in our company, we don't work in an essential area like that, but we wanted to provide our team with masks and things like that. And it was so hard to locate. I didn't need a ton, I didn't need a truckload. I just needed some for 8 people. Very difficult. But I am so glad that you made the point of being small and nimble because I think sometimes we all want to be like these big companies, but there's an advantage to being small.
No, it really is. I can leverage a more personable relationship on
Mm-hmm.
both ends, both with my distributors and manufacturers and as well as with my clients. So I try my best to really understand where that need is.
Mm-hmm.
And then in return, how can I leverage this relationship and build a partnership on the long term with my manufacturers? And I really try my best to lead with transparency and honesty in what is going on. I address issues. If there's a delay, if there is an expectation that is not going to be met timely, I communicate that with my clients as soon as possible and try to find a resolution before they're asking for an update. And
Right.
I think people appreciate that. Companies appreciate that because they know that nothing ever goes exactly according to plan.
That is so true. That is so true. Now that we're past the pandemic, how's business now?
Last night I saw a video, it was an artistic video of a man climbing up a stairwell and falling off of the stairwell and falling onto like a trampoline and then climbing back up and going up a little higher and then falling down. And it was, to me, it was a very realistic depiction of building a business.
Mm,
You have your ups and downs, you fall, you
definitely.
have challenges, and you got to keep pushing. And then you learn and build up off of those experiences. Business is consistently growing, but through that process, there are growing pains. There's challenges in operational expenses or capital to be able to grow. Trying to, even though the pandemic is over,
Right.
we're going into the flu season. Now, not only do we have flu, we still have COVID.
Right.
And companies, especially healthcare providers, are looking at what does that look like? We need to be more proactive and preventative. We have 2 new variants that have been introduced, and we don't know what that's going to look like, and we don't know how that's going to be impacted with the flu in combination. There is another influx. And then we also have other aspects of the supply chain that a lot of people don't take into consideration. The war in Ukraine, the increased demand, the tax or financial war or Cold War that we have with China that supplies a lot of products. There's a lot of different variables that come into place. We almost had a strike with the railroad system. That would have totally dismantled this whole country if
Yeah.
that had happened. And people don't understand how essential so many different variables come into play in order to be able to get one product to the end user. And
Right.
so there's more to come. There's a lot of growing and learning and adjustments that the supply chain industry is making. And what I'm trying to do is to further my knowledge, skill sets, and network. I am just about done. Actually, tomorrow I graduate from my Global Logistics and Trade Association course so that I can have a,
Congratulations.
thank you. I just want to be able to have a much more in-depth understanding and capability that I can translate and transfer to my clients.
That's really good. And I think you make a good point there is whatever industry you're in, you never stop learning, right? You never stop growing your talent and your expertise. That is so good. What would you say is one of the biggest challenges you're dealing with right now?
The challenge that I see right now is there's a big push on diversity and inclusion on corporate levels.
Mm-hmm.
But what I fail to see, or at least in my personal experience, is there's a lot of talk and movement, but I haven't seen as many actionable results through that. I've engaged in multiple conversations with corporate companies that express interest in our services, our products. We've provided them the information that they need, the product list, everything. And dealing with corporate, they work on a different timeline. And they say they're ready to move forward, but their move forward could be months out. I've had conversations and processes that took a year before we saw any real activity going on. So that's challenging for a small business, right? Because we're trying to grow, trying to leverage, and you start to get excited about something and then it goes silent and you're not sure what's going on. The communication isn't as fluid as you'd like it to be. Right. And there's an adjustment, trying to understand what that is and understanding what that sales cycle process is for each individual organization.
Yeah. I just recently read something or heard it where someone was saying, if there's a company you want to get into, don't wait until you feel like you're ready to go to that company. Go ahead and start now, because for those larger corporations, their sales cycle might be 6 months, a year and a half. So go ahead and get started. And I thought that's some really great advice. Because again, you're dealing with
very true
companies.
Yes.
Where everything moves very slow.
Yeah.
They're not as nimble.
And if there's a change in the organization or role or position, that impacts the process. It could push you back. It could start you over. It could just totally knock you out. I've had large Fortune 100 companies who have expressed interest in doing business with us, but then say, hey, we can't do anything yet until we know that we're not more than 40% of your business. Mm-hmm. Or we need to make sure that you can manage a term of 90 plus days before you get paid, after inspection. Those are realistic, considerate factors.
Right.
And I appreciate the honesty, because in some cases that wouldn't have been a good thing for us. Even though it'd be great to say, hey, we do business with this company, it doesn't always mean it's a great thing, because it can leave you cash poor.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier something about capital. How has that been for you as far as acquiring capital to grow your business and move it forward? How have you found that process to be?
It's been interesting. Most of my previous businesses, I've never looked for capital. It's always been self-funded and built it off of kind of like by my bootstraps. And this is the first time that I was looking for outside sources, because my purchase orders were much larger and I needed to be able to fund and pay my manufacturers in order to supply. The challenge that I have had is not getting the amount of capital that we really need to be able to do what we need to do. I need to be able to build our staff so that we're servicing our customers with efficiency and quality, as well as being able to increase our inventory so that we can lower our costs and deploy that to our customers as well. And then also looking at other overhead expenses or expansion, like warehousing, other logistics, management, and transportation, delivery. It's a dance. I leverage as many resources as I possibly can through nonprofit organizations, through the state programs, the different organizations and associations that I'm a member of that offer opportunities and training and support, and figure out what can I leverage? What am I eligible for? What do I need to do? Some things are fast, some things are not so fast, but you got to keep pushing.
Exactly.
And I don't like owing money.
Oh, I can relate with you on that one too. I don't either.
I just don't like that feeling, but I've been told many times, and it's true, leverage, use other people's money, OPM, to build, and I'm learning, but it was a little bit of a kicking and screaming process for me.
Yes, I totally can relate to that. I've been down the road of leveraging, using that quite well, but then I don't like the debt. I don't like seeing it on my balance sheet. And then we pay it down, and then it's kind of like, oh, well, credit's great. I mean, I get calls every other day about,
oh my goodness,
you
calls,
qualify
text
for
messages, emails, letters, everything. And they're like, here's a $150,000 check. And I'm like, I never asked for it.
Exactly. And
How
I'm
did
going
you
to have
find
to
me?
pay 175 back. So
Exactly.
like, I don't want your check. But no, I totally can relate to that for sure. I get you. I totally get you on that. Tell me a little bit about where you hope to see your business in, say, 3 years.
In 3 years, we look to be 5 million plus revenue company, expanding our warehousing capability, identified as a growing leader in the industry, as a top small business in multiple categories, definitely within the customer experience, leveraging our current clientele and building new ones off of that, off of word of mouth, which, believe it or not, that's where most of our business comes from, referrals from our current clients. We have stellar letters of referral from our clients, and we truly appreciate it and do our best to make sure that we continue to keep them honest in the references that they've given us in regards to our quality of service, and building that, maintaining and building that relationship, and building our team and positioning people in roles that they love, and expand in their skill set. And most importantly, positioning them where they can live a lifestyle that is fulfilling, because they make enough money to be able to pursue their personal dreams or enjoy the travel, or whatever the case may be. It's really, really important to me that I have staff that are happy on multiple levels, because I truly believe that if they are happy working within our organization and enjoy what they do, that translates to the service that we provide to our clients.
Yeah, definitely. How many team members do you currently have?
Most of my team members are remote and contract right now. I have 2 part-time, and I'm looking to continue to build. I have 2 part-time, 3 contracts, and I have other teams. Like I have a government team that I work with, and that's a team of 9 people that work with me. And, all of those are relationship based, and I have to do my part in holding up my end of the bargain and giving them what they need, the tools and information that they need to be able to do the job to help us grow.
Yeah, for sure. You're a mom of 3. What would you say to your kids in regards to becoming entrepreneurs in their future?
Well, my daughter is an entrepreneur. She's 15. She does hair. So she does braiding, and she just launched her own hair bonnet line.
I love it.
Yes. And I'm so proud of her. She's been doing it for over a year, and her clientele base is growing. She averages about at least 2 to 3 clients per week, sometimes as many as 5. And she's a professional dancer, competitive dancer on top of that. My son is helping and working in another small family business where we do children's amusement train rides at birthday parties, corporate events, festivals. And he is in his senior year and anticipates going to college studying business administration and entrepreneurship. They already have that entrepreneurial bug, and I think it's because they've seen it and that's all they know.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited. But most importantly, I tell them to do what gives them fulfillment and find a way to have a skill set that you can fall back on, that no one can take from you. And if it's not what you want to do full time or forever as a business, at least you have that available to you, whether it's a supplement or as a transition, whatever the case is. But most importantly to me is that they do what makes them happy.
Right. Totally agree. What's the name of your daughter's bonnet line? Because we need to know.
Yes. Her company is Hair by Isha B. And you can look her up on Instagram. I tell her all the time, I guess you can only ask so much from a 15-year-old who is running her own business, dancing and going to school. I was like, you need to do my marketing. You need to do my TikToks.
She doesn't have any more time, Mom.
She does not. But I'm so proud of her because she wasn't sure that I remember her telling me, she's like, Mom, nobody's going to want a 14-year-old to do their hair. My friends don't have money. I said, their parents do. And you're just as good as anyone else out there. And she's been honing her craft. She's doing amazing. having hair and hair products everywhere sometimes drives me nuts, but it comes with the territory.
Right. We all have the byproducts of our business around our house.
Exactly.
So it just is what it is.
It is.
But I will definitely follow her on Instagram and support that. That is absolutely wonderful. And I think when they do grow up around entrepreneurship, they have a hard time seeing anything else, because my kids never talk about working for someone.
I made my son get a job. And it wasn't because he had to get a job to go work for somebody. I wanted him to really see the difference between what it means to work for somebody and to work for yourself, and what that fulfillment you get. And then also to see where's the value and the trade-off in your time and the efforts that you put in. He has a part-time job in addition to going to school, preparing for college and doing the train business. But it's more importantly for him to see the value and the difference in, do you want to work for somebody else?
Right.
As well as translating what it takes, the skill sets and the dedication necessary in running a business, and by training under another business owner and understanding how important it is to adapt processes and quality in every aspect of a company so that he can translate it in his own business as well. But he's told me, he's like, Mom, I've decided I don't want to work for someone else.
He's made up his mind.
Yes.
And I agree. I do. My daughter's 12 and, she does a little different entrepreneurial things here and there, and she'll work at our business. But I do want her to work somewhere just because I think there's a lot to learn in that, and you can take it into your business. Or I always say entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. I definitely think her, because she's not going to want anybody telling her what to do ever. But I can barely tell her what to do.
Yes.
But I think that definitely it's not for everybody, but I think it's something you should give it a shot if you desire to do it, if you desire to do that. But it's definitely not for everybody. And
I think knowing the difference and seeing what it takes, you may decide, like, you know what, I don't want to do everything for my business. And it's much easier just having one role or task and clocking in and clocking out so that I can do the other things that give me fulfillment.
Right.
It's important that they get that experience to see the difference so that they can make a good, solid decision in what direction they want to go.
Yes, for sure. Let me ask you this. I know that you being in charge of your time is probably number one in you being your own boss.
Yes.
But what would you say is the second delight for you in being your own boss?
Honestly, I enjoy the challenge and the fulfillment in the wins. Like, I did it. Like, I put in the work. Like, I got no sleep last week, but it's done. I enjoy that. I really do. I take pride in hearing that my customers are happy and that we were able to deliver. I take pride in developing that relationship and knowing who they are personally and understanding their business and working as a partner, which is why the company is named International Supply Partners. We are partnering up with our customers. We are partnering up with our distributors and manufacturers on both ends so that we can make that connection.
I like that a lot. What's one thing that if you could turn back the hands of time and tell your younger self, what's one piece of advice you'd give yourself?
Patience. Have patience, and also trusting your gut. Trusting your gut. I would say that. Patience and trusting your gut.
Okay. That's good. I've had to learn that gut thing.
Yes.
I've gotten burned. Oh boy.
Oh my goodness, have I gotten burned. I've lost so much time. Money can always be made, but time can't be replaced.
Right.
Energy, things that cannot be replaced just by going against what you know and questioning yourself or allowing someone to make you second guess yourself because you think that, well, I'm just new or I'm just a small company and maybe I don't know maybe I'm wrong. But really,
Yeah. If there's someone out there listening to this and they're like, Jennifer might be the right person that I need to work with, what's your ideal client or partnership?
We look to work with, I really love working in the healthcare industry.
Okay.
And construction. And it's a matter of supporting them with the needed products and items that they need that is essential to their operations. And what makes us unique is that even though we're a small business, we have multiple certifications. Our capability is both large and small. And we leverage our relationships, both domestic as well as international. We have partners who have the financial backing and capability to bring in multiples of containers. We have partnerships with freight forwarders. We can bring in a very robust and sophisticated team depending on the size of your needs, and equally support you with a one-off or short-term small product.
Okay. Well, you've heard it here, people. If you need those services, reach out to Jennifer. I will make sure all of her contact info is in the show notes, so you can definitely reach out to her. Jennifer, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so much, Monica. I enjoyed it.
I want to thank Jennifer for joining the Become Your Own Boss podcast family. Her contact info is in the show notes if you need to utilize her services. So at the top of this episode, I read a quote by Richard Branson, and it stated, "There is no point in starting your own business unless you do it out of a sense of frustration." I have read this quote many times, and the first few times I read it, I disagreed. I'm like, does it have to be out of a sense of frustration? But I think when he says this, it doesn't pertain to like really being crazy upset or so frustrated that you're pulling your hair out. But I do think in order for you to create a business, you have to see something missing in the marketplace. So for Ethan and I, initially, it was really quality, cool looking fraternity and sorority gear. For this podcast, I felt like there was a lot of people who just did not understand the economics of doing business, meaning they understood that they wanted to start a business, but that they didn't know how to charge or exactly where to start, what paperwork they needed, all of the ins and outs of what it takes to run a business. I found in conversation that people didn't have that knowledge and that information. I didn't have it when I started. And so to make it easier for others, I thought a podcast is the way to go. Perhaps you weren't pulling your hair out when you started your business. Perhaps for those of you who want to start a business, you just haven't quite yet found what is frustrating you. But typically it is something there's a gap, there's something missing. For Jennifer, what she missed was freedom. She missed the opportunity to choose and not feel guilty for taking care of her kids. That is frustrating. And thus, a great reason to start a business. I honestly kind of feel like every mom should have a business. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not easy. But it's super nice to not have to ask someone else for permission to go to your kids' assembly or to take care of them when they're sick. It can be frustrating because perhaps you have to work at home. Perhaps you had a meeting schedule, you have to reschedule. So things can still be inconvenient, but it can be really nice to not have the additional pressure of getting permission or feeling guilty or bad because you have to take care of your child that's not feeling well. And truth be told, with the recent layoffs at companies like Amazon and Google, some of these big firms that people truly like to get in the door, like to get on their resume, I feel like almost everyone needs to have a side hustle of some sort because you never know when it may be your day to go. I can remember thinking when I was in college that I wanted to get a corporate job. I wanted that security. I wanted the benefits. I wanted all of those things. But what I also remember is when things went a little bit south for the company I worked for, they had no choice but to lay off people. There were 2 rounds of layoffs, and thankfully, I wasn't impacted by either one of those, but many people were. Many people who had been there for a number of years. So I say all that to say, it's always great to have a backup plan. I think everyone these days should have some type of side hustle. Even if you don't desire someday for your side hustle to become your main hustle, that's okay. If you can manage it, though, it's additional income for you to save, for you to invest, for you to have as a cushion should something happen at your secure job. I put that in air quotes. If you don't already have a side hustle, get a side hustle. I think if you're listening to this podcast, you either have a business or you want to start a business. So hopefully this feeds into you and helps you with that. You know, it's really hard to believe that we're already done with January. Where does the time go? That being said, how are you doing with those intentions and goals you set at the beginning of the year? I'm doing a live check-in with people on Monday and Tuesday of next week. I want to help you live life by your design. So I'm hosting a free virtual session to see where you are on your goals and help you get back or stay on track. You can join me Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern or Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, January 30th and 31st, respectively. Again, so hard to believe. This first month of the year is almost already over. See the links in the show notes to register for one of the sessions, or you can see the link in my Instagram bio at Become Your Own Boss Podcast. If you're not already following me on Instagram, please do so. This will allow you to be the first to know of free workshops or classes I may be hosting. You can also join the Become Your Own Boss community by going to my website, monicaallen.com. I will always send you an email to let you know what's happening. I'm grateful that you took the time to listen today. Please take a few minutes to rate, subscribe, and write a review for the podcast. Also, don't forget to share this episode with a friend. As an entrepreneur, we can all use some encouragement from time to time. So share the wealth. Now is the time. Now is the time to level up, leave a legacy, and become your own boss.